Monica Johnson was a woman of quiet strength and unwavering determination. A single mother who had spent the better part of a decade tirelessly juggling 2 jobs to provide the best life possible for her bright and energetic 7-year-old son, Isaiah, from the early mornings when she rose before dawn to prepare Isaiah for school, to the late nights after her second job when exhaustion tugged at her bones. Monica bore the weight of her responsibilities with grace and relentless resolve. Every penny she earned was carefully saved, every dollar stretched thin. Or for moments like this, moments of small celebration and joy amid the struggle. This trip was one such occasion. Monica had managed, with painstaking effort, to book 2 first-class tickets for the flight home, a rare luxury she had never afforded herself before. It wasn't just about the comfort of plush seats or extra legroom. It was about giving Isaiah a special experience, a reward for his bravery as he faced the uncertainty of a new school in a new town. She had spent the weeks leading up to the trip meticulously planning, buying Isaiah a new outfit, neatly folded and pressed, packing his favorite books, snacks, and a small toy he loved for the flight. When the day came, Monica dressed Isaiah carefully, brushing his curls and smoothing his shirt, a mother's pride shining in her eyes. At the airport, with their boarding passes in hand, Monica's heart was full of hope and anticipation. She imagined the 2 of them settling into their seats, sharing smiles and laughter, feeling the quiet triumph of a journey well deserved. As they approached the gate and then boarded the plane, Monica's hopes remained high. She carried Isaiah's hand gently, guiding him toward the first-class cabin with the same pride she felt when he took his first steps or said his first words. But as soon as she stepped into that cabin, the atmosphere shifted like a cold wind blowing through a warm room. The flight attendant who greeted them barely glanced at Monica, offering curt, clipped instructions without the warmth or kindness Monica had expected. She tried to ask polite questions about the seats, the service, or even if Isaiah could have a small extra snack, but the attendant brushed her off, clearly uninterested. Monica's smile faltered, but she kept her composure, determined not to let the cloud of indifference ruin their moment. Then, as they settled in, a wealthy-looking white passenger nearby cast a sharp, disdainful glance their way and whispered something to the attendant. Monica caught the phrase as the attendant's expression hardened. "She doesn't belong here." Those words hit Monica like a physical blow, cutting through the fragile bubble of dignity she had tried to build around herself and Isaiah moments. Later, the flight attendant returned with an icy, unapologetic tone and informed Monica that there had been a mistake with her ticket and that she and Isaiah would have to be moved to coach immediately. Monica's heart sank, but she refused to give in without protest. She calmly showed her boarding pass, explaining that she had paid for these seats months ago, that she had counted every penny to make this possible. But her words fell on deaf ears. The attendant was unmoved, her decision final and unyielding. Monica was told to gather their belongings and move to the back of the plane. Isaiah clung to her hand, sensing her distress but unsure why the world seemed to have turned cold all of a sudden. Tears welled up in Monica's eyes, blurring the faces around her, some staring with awkward discomfort, others looking away, unwilling or afraid to intervene. As she walked past those first-class seats she had hoped to enjoy, past the luxury she had earned with blood, sweat, and tears, Monica felt her humiliation deepen. She was invisible now, not because of anything she had done or failed to do, but because of the color of her skin. A single mother, strong and resilient, was reduced to a shadow, questioned not by the merit of her effort but by the prejudice of others. The shame was overwhelming, but Monica knew she had to hold her head high. If not for herself, then for Isaiah, for his future, for the example she would set. And though this moment was one of cruel injustice, it would not break her spirit. Monica sat cramped in the back of the plane, the narrow coach seat feeling like a cage compared to the roomy first-class space she had been forced to leave, her chest tight with a mixture of anger, disbelief, and a profound sense of injustice that churned relentlessly inside her. Beside her, Isaiah looked up with wide, innocent eyes, trusting and hopeful despite the humiliation they had just endured. And in that moment, Monica silently vowed she would not let this cruel moment define their day or diminish her son's spirit. So she pulled out her phone, fingers trembling slightly, and dialed the airline's customer service number with determination burning in her heart to speak with a manager, someone who might right this wrong. As the ringing continued, she quietly began to explain the situation to nearby passengers, her voice steady but firm, telling them how they had been unfairly removed from first class despite holding valid tickets. And while some passengers nodded in understanding and sympathy, others looked away, unsure how to intervene or fearful of making a scene, leaving Monica to hold her ground alone for a few long, tense minutes until she was finally connected to a calm, attentive supervisor named David, whose voice carried a tone of seriousness and resolve when Monica recounted her experience, prompting him to promise an immediate investigation and a swift response, offering her a glimmer of hope in an otherwise disheartening situation. Not content to wait silently, Monica then used her phone to go live on social media, speaking directly to the camera with quiet dignity as she recounted the discrimination she faced, her tone calm but unwavering. And as the video streamed to hundreds of viewers within minutes, outrage swelled among an ever-growing audience who shared commented, and rallied in support of Monica and Isaiah, making their story impossible to ignore. Back inside the cabin, murmurs grew louder, whispers spreading like wildfire as passengers began demanding explanations and accountability from the crew and fellow travelers. Their collective discomfort turning into a unified chorus for justice, forcing the airline to take Monica's complaint seriously in a way no polite request had achieved. Meanwhile, David, the supervisor on the line, escalated the matter urgently to corporate headquarters, conveying the gravity of the incident and the growing public backlash, and then made a call that stunned everyone involved. He decided to ground the flight entirely until Monica and Isaiah were reinstated to their rightful seats in first class. A bold move, signaling that the airline would not tolerate such blatant discrimination under its watch. The announcement came over the plane's speakers with a tone both formal and resolute. Ladies and gentlemen, due to a serious customer service issue, this flight will be temporarily grounded, leaving passengers startled, some frustrated by the delay but many others expressing visible support and empathy for Monica's plight, their eyes meeting hers with newfound respect as the delay became not just about a flight but about standing up against injustice. A moment when a single mother's courage inspired an entire cabin to rethink assumptions, challenge prejudices, and demand dignity for all, marking the beginning of a journey far greater than any destination. The plane remained grounded on the tarmac for hours as airline management scrambled to resolve the escalating situation, their faces tight with tension as they wrestled with the fallout of a single moment of discrimination that had now exploded into a full-blown public relations crisis. Inside the cabin, Monica sat quietly but resolutely in the first-class seat she had fought so hard to reclaim, Isaiah beside her, both still shaken but holding onto each other, their shared strength a beacon amidst the turmoil. While outside, news crews had swarmed the airport, cameras rolling and microphones thrust forward, capturing Monica's calm yet powerful recounting of the ordeal, alongside reactions from fellow passengers who expressed shock, empathy, and solidarity. Social media platforms exploded with Monica's story, shared tens of thousands of times within hours, sparking widespread outrage and support that forced airline executives to address the incident publicly and formally, issuing a heartfelt apology for the discriminatory treatment Monica had endured, promising swift action to ensure such injustice would not happen again. Soon after, a senior airline official personally boarded the plane to meet Monica and Isaiah face-to-face, offering not just words but pledges to implement comprehensive training on racial bias for all staff, to revise customer service policies, and to create channels that empower passengers to report mistreatment without fear or hesitation. Monica's courageous stand had ignited a powerful and much-needed conversation about the pervasive racial biases that often go unspoken within the airline industry and beyond, transforming what had started as a personal humiliation into a collective, the awakening that exposed the everyday indignities faced silently by countless black women and single mothers everywhere. In this moment, Monica understood that her painful experience had transcended the confines of a single flight, making her a symbol of resistance and dignity for millions who had long endured similar treatment in silence. And as messages of support poured in from across the country, strangers who saw her courage as their own Monica found renewed strength and purpose. No longer just a passenger but a determined voice for justice, equality, and respect, committed to ensuring that no one else would have to endure the humiliation she and Isaiah had faced, and that the skies would someday truly be open to all, without prejudice or pain. In the weeks and months following the harrowing yet history-shifting incident aboard Flight 728, Monica Johnson's life transformed from that of a quiet, hard-working single mother to an emblem of national reckoning, a beacon for justice, dignity, and the tireless fight against systemic discrimination that had long cloaked itself in civility, bureaucracy, and the silent compliance of everyday people. The video of her calm, poised, and powerful defiance had not only gone viral but had ignited a cultural wildfire, sparking town hall meetings, television debates, airline policy revisions, and more importantly, it inspired everyday citizens, other black mothers who had lived through parallel humiliations in silence to rise, speak, organize, and demand change, not just for themselves but for their children and the future generations watching their every move. Monica, once camera-shy and hesitant to speak publicly, found herself on stages she never imagined, invited to conferences, corporate boardrooms, universities, community centers, churches, and global forums, her voice steady and clear as she told the story not of personal victimhood but of resilience, of how she chose to stand tall not because it was easy, but because she refused to let Isaiah grow up thinking silence was safer than truth, or that survival was more important than justice. Alongside civil rights attorneys, diversity experts, and grassroots organizers, Monica co-founded an initiative called Skybound Equality, aimed at transforming the airline and hospitality industries through transparency, equity training, and a zero-tolerance policy for bias-related incidents. And her efforts bore fruit quickly. Within 6 months, 3 major airlines announced sweeping policy overhauls, including passenger advocacy teams on every flight, real-time bias reporting, tools, and a public accountability board comprised of activists, passengers, and corporate executives. And yet, even with growing fame and influence, Monica remained grounded, tethered to the real meaning of her work. Her son Isaiah, whose innocence had been so violently challenged that day but who now walked with a quiet pride, knowing his mother had turned pain into power, his drawings of planes replaced by visions of protest signs, podiums, and superheroes that bore his mother's likeness. Monica often returned to her community in Atlanta, speaking not just in schools but in shelters, beauty salons, barbershops, and even street corners, reminding people that fighting back didn't always mean shouting, that sometimes it meant making a call, asking a question, refusing to shrink. The same flight crew that had humiliated her was quietly retrained, and while Monica never asked for personal vengeance, she did insist that those responsible confront what they had done, not just in whispered apologies but through active participation. In the new education program her foundation implemented, one built on empathy, storytelling, and historical truth, one of the flight attendants, a young white woman named Rachel, reached out months later and told Monica that what had happened had broken her, but Monica's grace had rebuilt her, leading her to become one of the strongest advocates within the company for real change. Stories like that became frequent, as the ripple of Monica's voice spread far beyond runways and terminals, eventually landing on Capitol Hill, where she testified before Congress about racial discrimination in public services. Her presence, dignified, her words laced with fire and compassion, moving lawmakers and spectators alike to tears and standing ovations. She declined offers to run for office or appear on reality shows, preferring to stay focused on systemic work. But she did write a book, First Class Citizen, which became a bestseller and was later adapted into a film starring a major actress, who insisted Monica's real voice be heard in the narration. Corporations sought her advice, civil rights organizations partnered with her, and parents across the country wrote her letters thanking her for giving them language to explain to their children what courage looks like, what justice feels like, what dignity means when it's tested and reclaimed. And through it all, Monica never forgot the moment it began, not the shame, not the tears, not even the silence of the other passengers, but the still, resolute fire that rose within her when she realized no one else was coming to speak for her, that she had to become the voice, the shield, and the sword for herself and Isaiah, because the cost of silence was too high, and the price of justice was worth everything. From a back row seat to global platforms, from humiliation to empowerment, Monica's journey soared higher than any aircraft, her story etched into history not as a viral moment but as a movement, reminding the world that dignity is not a luxury reserved for the wealthy or the white, but a birthright, and when one woman dares to reclaim it, she grounds not just a plane but the very systems that try to tell her where she does and does not belong.